You've heard it all before, right? God created the world and everything starts in Genesis 1. But what if I told you that's not the whole story? What if there's a piece of the puzzle that's been hidden in plain sight for centuries? The Bible itself hints at it, yet most people gloss over it, intentionally or not. In Proverbs 8, there's a figure who claims to have existed before creation, witnessing it all. Who is this mysterious figure? She's called Wisdom, or Chokmah in Hebrew. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wisdom is a person. Isn't that just a metaphor? Well, if you dig deeper, it gets a lot more intriguing. Here's what she says. The Lord brought me forth as the first of his works. Before his deeds of old, I was formed long ages ago, at the very beginning, when the world came to be. Proverbs 8 verses 22 to 23. She's not just some passive observer. No, she was there from the start, acting alongside God as he shaped the universe. She continues, I was there when he set the heavens in place, when he marked out the horizon on the face of the deep. Proverbs 8 verse 27, this isn't Genesis 1 language, it's something different, and it begs a question. If wisdom was there before light, water, and land, what does that say about the nature of creation itself? What role did she play? Was creation really just God speaking things into existence, or was it a collaboration, a divine partnership? The implications are huge. For thousands of years, mainstream theology has sidelined this figure, reduced her to an abstract concept. But that's not what Proverbs says. Wisdom is personified as a woman. She has agency, a voice, and a presence that predates the entire universe. Why would the Bible give such prominence to this feminine figure right at the start of everything if she didn't matter? If wisdom, or Chokmah, was involved in creation, what does that mean for the traditional view of God as the sole creator? Is the idea of a singular, masculine God incomplete? This revelation challenges the patriarchal lens through which creation stories have been interpreted for centuries. It forces us to reconsider the narrative that only God, in the masculine sense, shaped the world. We're not just dealing with an all-powerful God who speaks reality into being. We're talking about a cooperative act of creation, where wisdom, the feminine counterpart, plays a fundamental role. This isn't just theology, it's a paradigm shift, and the Bible subtly supports it. If you think that sounds radical, remember this. Proverbs is in the Bible. It's been right there all along. There's a reason the early church fathers and later scholars downplayed this figure, acknowledging how complicates the neat, hierarchical structure that positions God as the lone actor. It opens up the possibility that the feminine was crucial in the act of creation, a notion that flies in the face of millennia of doctrine. Let's get one thing straight. The creation story in Genesis isn't the oldest account of how the universe came to be. In fact, it borrows heavily from older traditions, and what's most surprising is what those traditions reveal. Before there was light, land, or life, there was chaos, dark, wild, untamed chaos. And it wasn't just a backdrop to creation, it was the enemy that had to be defeated. Let's start with the idea of chaos itself. In the ancient Near East, the idea of primordial waters was central to the creation myths. This isn't just about some calm sea waiting for God to show up and start organizing. No, this is about violent, destructive forces that threatened existence. In the Babylonian and Numerish, for instance, there's Tiamat, a cosmic sea dragon who represents chaos itself. Creation in that story happened when the god Marduk slays her and uses her body to form the heavens and the earth. Does that sound familiar? Now, look at Psalm 74. It was you who split open the sea by your power. You broke the heads of the monster in the waters. This isn't Genesis 1's serene God calmly speaking things into existence. This is warfare. The Bible is borrowing directly from these earlier traditions where creation was an act of violence, not peace. Genesis gives us a calm, orderly creation story, but it's not the only version within the Bible itself. The Psalms, Isaiah, Job, they tell us about a God who had to fight to bring about creation. In these accounts, creation wasn't just a matter of speaking the word, it was a battle against chaos personified by monsters like Leviathan. Genesis might downplay it, but these older texts reveal the chaos that lurked before creation. The Bible itself reflects this ancient understanding of chaos as an active force. In Genesis 1 verse 2, we're told that the earth was formless and empty, and darkness was over the surface of the deep. That deep in Hebrew is Tihom, a term that's linguistically connected to Tiamat, the chaos dragon. The waters of chaos weren't just passive, they were a threat, an enemy that had to be subdued. And this chaos wasn't just defeated once. The Psalm suggests that God continually battles the forces of chaos to maintain order in the world. It's not a one-time event. Creation in these texts is ongoing, a constant struggle to keep the universe from slipping back into disorder. What's the significance of all this? Well, it paints a very different picture of the nature of God and creation than what you might have been taught. God isn't just a detached, all-powerful figure commanding things into existence from on high. Instead, he's a warrior, fighting back the forces of chaos. And that raises a crucial question. If creation is an ongoing battle, could chaos still be at work in the world today? Is the struggle between order and disorder still unfolding around us, even in ways we don't see? We've been taught that God created the world alone, that the act of creation was a solo performance of divine power. But if you dig into ancient texts, it becomes clear that this isn't the full story. The Bible and other ancient writings leave us clues, hints of a feminine presence alongside God during creation. And for centuries, this idea has been buried under layers of tradition and doctrine. So what exactly are we missing? Let's talk about Shekinah. Ever heard of her? Probably not in most church settings. Shekinah represents the divine presence in Jewish mysticism, often depicted as feminine. She's not just a shadow or an abstract idea. In the Zohar, one of the central texts of Jewish Kabbalistic thought, Shekinah is described as the bride of God, an active force working alongside him. The presence of Shekinah during creation introduces the idea of balance between the masculine and feminine aspects of the divine. It's no longer just a solitary God, but a partnership. Think about what that means. This concept of divine femininity isn't unique to the Zohar. If we look to ancient Israelite religion, there's evidence that God may have once had a partner, Mashira. Archaeological findings, including inscriptions and figurines, suggest that Asherah was worshipped alongside Yahweh in ancient Israel. Inscriptions from Kontilat Adrud, a site in the Sinai Peninsula, refer to Yahweh and his Asherah. So why isn't she mentioned in the Bible? Because later biblical writers and editors intentionally erased her. The worship of Asherah was condemned as idolatry in texts like 2 Kings 23, but before that she was a prominent figure. What does it mean that the feminine aspect of God was erased from the tradition? The narrative of creation changes drastically when you include these suppressed figures. In mainstream teachings, God is portrayed as transcendent, far above creation. But with Shekinah and Asherah, you get a more complex picture. Shekinah brings God closer to the world, imbuing it with divine presence. Asherah, on the other hand, symbolizes the nurturing, life-giving aspect of the divine. Together, they form a duality, masculine and feminine, transcendent and immanent, that was essential in the ancient worldview. It's not just about the idea of God having a wife or a feminine counterpart. This shifts the whole understanding of divinity. When you introduce a feminine aspect into the equation, it transforms God from a distant, all-powerful figure into a more relational, dynamic force. The idea that God can both be above creation and within it, balancing chaos and order, speaks to a more profound connection between the divine and the world. This isn't just speculation. The feminine aspects of the divine aren't just scattered hints. They're woven throughout various texts, even if they've been downplayed or ignored. In the book of Proverbs, wisdom speaks of herself as a collaborator with God, and in the Zohar, Shekinah's role is to dwell among humanity, to maintain the balance between the divine and the earthly. The absence of this feminine element in mainstream interpretations leaves us with a God that's incomplete. The story of creation is much richer, much more led than we've been told. When you include figures like Shekinah and Asherah, you open up a whole new way of understanding how the universe came to be, one where creation isn't just about power and authority, but about relationship, balance, and harmony between masculine and feminine forces. This is where the story takes a sharp turn, one that flips everything you thought you knew about the creation of the world on its head. If you grew up believing that the God of Genesis is the ultimate creator of everything, prepare to question that. Because according to Gnostic teachings, the God in Genesis might not be the supreme creator at all. In fact, he might be something far more unsettling, a demiurge, a lower, flawed being who's responsible for the creation of our flawed material world. The Gnostics, who were early Christian sects, believed that there's a higher, unknowable God, far beyond anything we can imagine, a God of pure spirit and light. But the material world? It was created by the demiurge, a lesser, ignorant deity who thought he was the one true God. And here's the kicker. This demiurge is none other than the God of the Old Testament. The Apocryphon of John, one of the key Gnostic texts, tells us how this all happened. Sophia wanted to create something without the consent of the true God. What she created, however, was a being that was malformed, imperfect, the demiurge. In a panic, she cast him into the lower realms, and this creature, thinking he was the only divine being in existence, started to fashion the material universe. His arrogance knew no bounds. He declared, "I am God, and there is no other God besides me." That's exactly what we see in Isaiah 45 verse 5, where the God of the Bible proclaims his exclusivity. What if the God we've been worshiping as the creator of all things is, in fact, a cosmic impostor? The demiurge, according to Gnosticism, isn't all-knowing. He's not benevolent. He's deeply flawed, full of ignorance and arrogance, creating a world that reflects his broken nature, a world filled with suffering, chaos, and decay. And this world? It's a prison designed to trap souls in the material realm, keeping them from ascending to the higher spiritual reality. Now think about the implications of that. The very world we live in, the bodies we inhabit, the systems we interact with, they're all part of this demiurge's flawed creation. And our spirits, they come from the higher realms, from the true God, and they're trapped here, yearning to return to the divine source. According to Gnostics, our purpose isn't to follow the rules laid down by this false God, but to transcend this broken material world and seek liberation. So where does that leave us? If the God of the Old Testament is the demiurge, a deceiver, then everything about the traditional Judeo-Christian narrative gets turned upside down. The commandments, the laws, the very structure of society, are they part of a divine plan? Or are they part of the demiurge's prison, designed to keep us from true freedom? That's the real controversy here. And then there's the figure of the serpent in the Garden of Eden. In Gnostic thought, the serpent isn't the villain. He's the hero. He's the one trying to awaken humanity to the truth, offering Adam and Eve the knowledge of good and evil so they can break free from the demiurge's control. In this version of the story, the serpent becomes a liberator. And the Garden of Eden? It's not a paradise, it's a trap, a gilded cage to keep humanity ignorant and subservient to the demiurge. This completely reframes the concept of sin and rebellion. It's not about defying a benevolent creator. It's about escaping the clutches of a flawed, oppressive deity. The Gnostics believed that by gaining knowledge, gnosis, we could awaken from the illusion of this material world and ascend back to the divine realm, where our spirits truly belong. We've already explored how creation might not have been the harmonious act of divine will that we were taught. But what if I told you that the drama of creation doesn't start with humanity's fall? It starts before that, with Sophia's fall. In Gnostic tradition, Sophia isn't just a wise figure observing creation. She's a central player in a cosmic tragedy. Sophia, one of the divine beings from the higher realms, is driven by an overwhelming desire to create something of her own. Without the consent of the true God, she gives birth to a malformed, imperfect being with a demiurge. This event isn't just a mistake, it's the catalyst for the creation of the material world as we know it, a world trapped in imperfection and suffering. Sophia's fall is profound. It's a descent from the pure, divine realms into the shadowy, chaotic lower world. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Gnostic texts like the hypostasis of the archons describe her fall as a moment of grief and confusion, not just for Sophia, but for the entire cosmic order. The creation of the demiurge and the material world wasn't intentional. It was a chaotic accident, one that introduced suffering, conflict, and ignorance into existence. According to Gnostic belief, the world wasn't created by a benevolent, all-knowing deity with a perfect plan. Instead, it was the result of a cosmic mistake, a creation born out of ignorance and sorrow. And humanity? We're stuck right in the middle of it. If creation itself was the result of an error, what does that say about our existence? Is everything we see around us, this material world, the systems of power and control, the very reality we interact with, part of a broken, flawed design? For Gnostics, the answer is yes. the world we live in is far from the divine ideal. It's a prison for our souls, trapping us in a reality that distracts us from the truth of our higher origins. But there's hope in Sophia's story. After her fall, Sophia doesn't just give up. She repents, and in her repentance, she seeks to guide humanity back to the light. She becomes the catalyst for awakening, whispering to those who seek knowledge, offering a way out of the prison of material existence. This is why the Gnostics saw knowledge, or gnosis, as the key to salvation. It wasn't through following the laws of the demiurge, but through understanding the truth of our divine spark, the part of us that comes from the higher spiritual realms. Think about it. This entire narrative turns traditional religious teachings on their head. It challenges the idea that this world is inherently good and that our purpose is to follow the laws of the Old Testament God. Instead, it suggests that true salvation comes from rejecting this flawed world and seeking the hidden knowledge that connects us to the true divine. Sophia's fall is the ultimate cautionary tale. Even divine beings can make mistakes. But it's also a story of redemption. Through her suffering and error, she becomes the key to our awakening. And that, perhaps, is the most powerful part of this entire narrative. We too can awaken. We too can rise above the chaos and ignorance of this material world and return to the divine source from which we came. And that wraps up today's video. If this story challenges your perspective, don't worry, you're not alone. These ideas have sparked debate for centuries, and they continue to push us to think critically about the nature of creation, God, and our place in the universe. Thank you for watching until the end. I truly appreciate your time and engagement. If you found this content thought-provoking, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Sophia the Demiurge and everything we've covered today. God bless you all, and see you in the next video.